The Aussie Report. News and information concerning corruption across Australia. G'day folks, it's Mad Aussie here and welcome to the Aussie Report. Now, I recently put out a video about the Common Law Court issuing 78 warrants, high profile warrants. And I now want to put out a warning about that information. I'm going to leave it up for informational purposes, but I'm also going to warn you about possibly proceeding, with any of it. Back in February the 11th, 2022, Wayne Glue was charged with allegedly inciting others to arrest Mark McGowan. Now, from my understanding, he was using that common law arrest warrant information to go after politicians and such. And so I'll read a bit of this out to you, and I'm going to play a video or two of Glenn's to let you give you an idea about who he is and what he's about and stuff like that as well. A 74-year-old man from Geraldton, who is part of an informal movement of sovereign citizens, not sure if I'd call him sovereign citizen, but has been charged for allegedly inciting others to arrest government ministers, including Premier Mark McGowan. State Security Investigation Group officers travelled from Perth to Geraldton yesterday to arrest Wayne Kenneth Glue at his property in Glenfield in Geraldton North. He has been charged with inciting another to commit an indictable offence. It is alleged Mr. Glue posted a series of videos on social media where he used threatening language and incited others to arrest government ministers and public officials after documents claiming to be arrest warrants were handed in at Perth Police Station in January. He was granted bail and will face the Geraldton Magistrate Court in March. The former police officer had his property seized in 2018 after he refused to pay $300,000 in council rates and legal costs because he believed local governments were unconstitutional. During the 2019 federal election, Mr. Glue, who was declared a vexatious litigant by the WA Supreme Court, ran for the Senate under the Great Australian Party. Nearly 20,000 people follow Mr. Glue on social media. And so this is an ABC article. This will be linked down below along with all the rest. Also got an article here from Showbiz Corner, which is titled "Who is Wayne Glue? News of Sovsit leader getting arrested has outraged Freedom Convoy activists." And this is February 10th, 2022. And has a little bit more information about him, and also has a little video here which I'm going to play for you of his arrest, and then I'm going to come back and play another video for you as well, so stick around for these and learn a little bit about him.
Officer of the Crown, and I know because I am one. So you have no authority. So please move your vehicle.
The paperwork is coming and we'll show you what we've got.
You don't have any paperwork which is lawful.
Wayne?
I know who State Security are. They've been monitoring my computer and my phone for ages, and I gave them access. So you have no authority on this property.
Good morning, Mr. Glue. My name's Jeff Fawley from the State Security Investigation Group.
I'm not Mr. Glue. My name is Wayne.
Okay, Wayne.
As ruled by the Supreme Court.
Cool. There's your copy of the search warrant, Wayne. At this
what?
point in time, you're under arrest under suspicion of incitement to commit an indictable offence.
Indictable offence of what?
Incitement to commit an indictable offence.
Of what?
Deprivation of liberty.
Of who?
At this point in time, you're under arrest.
For what?
Okay. Incitement to commit an indictable offence.
Do you have the evidence there?
No, that's a copy of your search warrant. Okay.
Hang on a tick. Because this is nonsense and you know it. This is an attempt to shut me up from teaching the truth.
No, not at all.
Yes, it is. Where's the... Hang on.
Just go with him, Lewis.
Well, you can take it and go. That's not signed by anybody. It's not signed by anybody and you know it.
The copy of the search warrant isn't signed by the JP, it's blacked out. I've got the original copy of the search warrant, which is signed by the Justice of the Peace.
Where is it?
In the car.
Did I have a look, please?
No, that's your copy. That's what you're entitled to have.
No.
Okay. All right, we're going to do a search warrant. You're on your way, so I'll get you to come with me, please, so that
Okay, so that was the arrest. It has a little bit more information about him down here. And there is another video that might be the arrest again by the looks of it. That's not what I'm going to play. Coming up is an interview with Wayne Glue from 2010, perhaps. I think it's posted in January 2011. Yeah, so this is about 10 to 15 minutes long. It actually goes for about 55 minutes. The whole video can be found on YouTube, and I'm just going to play the start of it just to give you guys an idea of who Wayne Glue is. So yeah, check this out.
Right, we're here interviewing Wayne Glue. It's Monday the 13th of December 2010, and Wayne has very kindly consented to being interviewed regarding the Constitution and his knowledge and how it affects ordinary Australians. So Wayne, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we realise that you are a busy man. And
welcome.
We really appreciate you coming here. Could you tell us a bit about your background before you actually got into this Constitution?
Well, I spent 17 years in the Western Australian Police Force doing general police work, and I started studying the Constitution prior to joining the police force. And while studying all the law in relation to my work in that job, I realised quite a bit of what I was doing was unconstitutional, and you're still ordered to do it, irrespective of whether it complies with the Constitution or not. That got my back up, and it put me at loggerheads with some of the bosses in the police force in relation to particular jobs we had to do. One of them was random breath tests. They're in direct contravention to section 92 of the Constitution. That being, you have a right to travel on every road in this country. It isn't a privilege to drive on a road, it is a right. Irrespective of what the government says or what the police department says. Now, to interrupt that right, they must see you commit an offence, which always was the case when I first joined the police force.
Yes.
Now, they're pulling you over for no good reason. They're depriving you of your liberty. They're poking something in your face and saying, blow in this, you're drunk. They don't say the words you're drunk, but they're inferring you're drunk. Blow in this instrument and prove that you're sober. Now, the onus of proof is on them, not you. If you don't blow in it, they charge you with drink driving. In other words, you are drunk.
And they've presumed you to be drunk.
Yes, and you have to prove that you're not, which is a reversal of the rule of law. That is constitutional fraud. Now, the same goes for these drug tests, only the drug tests are worse. That's sexual assault. That's any entry into your body without your permission is assault. And they have no right to stick anything in your mouth.
Or any part of your body.
Or any part of your body. That just goes against the grain. Who the heck do these people think they are? The people in this country are sovereign. The government only reserves the right to pass laws for the good government and well-being of this country. These laws are passed to help us, not to govern over us. What it really means, as a sovereign person, you're completely not bound by any law until you actually break one. You're free to wander this country as long as you don't do any harm to any other person and you abide by the rules and regulations. You have no problem. You aren't subject to a law unless you break it. It's as simple as that.
Right. Okay. In reference to what you've just said, did you see the Sunday Times of Western Australia yesterday?
In relation to what? I read it from one end to the other.
I've got a copy of the Sunday Times here from Western Australia. It's dated December the 12th, 2010, and it says "Force Under Fire." Did you read that article?
Yes, I read it. Some of it I agree with, quite a bit of it I don't, because I know from experience there's a heck of a lot of really dedicated people in the police force. They're being lied to by politicians.
Well, that's what some of them claim here as to give for their reason for resignation.
Yeah. It's abuse of authority by politicians and the bullying by politicians, and they're downright lied to by politicians. The politicians are passing laws which the police know are wrong, but it's like every other job. You're in there for a lifetime, you try to do your best. If you refuse to do what they tell you, you lose everything. And some of them, it's their houses, their family, the lot. Now, they put the police under these pressures. They've got enough pressure as it is. I don't say, and I never will, that some of the police are squeaky clean. They do stupid things, but there's a lot of people in a big group. You're going to expect that to happen. If you don't, you're just a moron.
But Australia has a history of royal commissions into police forces, doesn't it?
Yes, well, why haven't we got a royal commission into the politicians that create the mess for the police in the first place?
That's a good point that Wayne's raised. Just for those that never saw this paper, it says a third of departing officers say morale isn't positive, 1 in 5 saw bullying, and 1 in 10 observed illegal, improper or corrupt behaviour. And some of our listeners and viewers would not be aware of what the article said. So that was the Sunday Times, and thanks for commenting on that. We'll move on to the next question. How did you get involved in raising constitutional issues?
Well, I bought a property in Geraldton. I paid cash for it. It wasn't very much. I bought it off the bank. It was a large area of land. I had to put a lot of work into it. And I fenced it, which was some $13,500. And when I went to build the building I wanted on it, I got told I could build part of the building. I couldn't live in it. And I had to put a caveat on the property, myself pay for it, saying that I would remove the building if I subdivided, something that I had no intentions of doing. And I hate mobile phones.
You want to turn that off?
Yeah.
We'll just continue, let the film run while he turns this mobile phone off.
Still hasn't gone off, it's just... Now it's off, that's good.
So you had to pay for the caveat on this property.
Well, that's what they expect.
To say that you would remove the building.
Yes.
If they requested you to, or
no, if I subdivided the property.
If you subdivided the property.
Yeah. Well, wake up. Obviously, you would remove the building if you didn't want it in the place on the property. But if I subdivided it, I would want to keep a particular area, and that was the area where I wanted to build this particular building.
Right. And this property's out of Geraldton, isn't it? It's not actually in the home.
It's actually 8.5 kilometres north of Geraldton towards Drummond's Cove.
Right.
And it sits on top of a hill overlooking the ocean.
Yeah. Valuable property, I would imagine.
It's 22.5 acres of land. Yes, it's a reasonable property. It needs a lot of work, and it's had a lot of work and needs a lot more. And when I went to the council, they put all these conditions, and I said, so there's nothing wrong with the building? And he said, no. I said, well, I'm going to build it anyway, and I did. Then I told them, well, I own the property and I'm not paying you rent, so I refused to pay the rates on it. I refused to allow them on my property. And then I started reading up on fee simple and its application to the Constitution, and I found out that some Chalice's Real Property 3rd edition, and it explains fee simple, which alienates your land from the Crown.
What was that?
Chalice's Real Property 3rd edition. It's an inherited law.
Right.
And it's law in this country under the Imperial Acts Adoption Act.
The viewers should take note of that. Chalice's
Real Property.
Real Property.
Real in REAL in relation to real estate.
Yes.
The fact is, the only authority for anybody to tax your land is under the Crown. If it's alienated from the Crown, how can they tax it? I took the matter to the Magistrates Court, and I can't describe the whole thing other than a moronic gathering of nitwits who thought that they could just ignore the law and follow the will of the government which was to get control of your land through local government and everything else. You had to bear in mind we had a referendum in 1988 and 72% of Western Australians said, get lost, we don't want local government.
And are the local government authorities commercial organisations?
They're corporations under 2.5 of their Act. It states local government established as a body corporate.
Right.
Has the same position as a natural person. Well, that's an impossibility because rulings of the High Court of England, which are binding in this country, state that only a flesh and blood person can have the same value as a real person. A corporation is actually a sovereign entity, not a sovereign body.
Yes.
And there is a distinction.
Yes.
But because they are a corporation, they have to register with ASIC. And there's a reason for that, because Section 51, subsection 20 of the Constitution requires all corporations to come under federal legislative authority. In fact, it goes as far in the annotated Constitution that states companies formed under state legislation, once formed, come under federal legislative authority. Now that's recognised in the 2001 Federal Corporations Act under Section 5, and it actually lists municipalities. They are not the third tier of government, that's a lie. Going back to registering with ASIC, they all have ABN numbers.
Yes.
And when you go into the ASIC website, they come up with the ABN number with NRGD after it. And I'll go further into that when we go down further into this interview.
Now, the government is very keen to put out a little booklet called the Australian Constitution, but I gather you think that that's not the real thing.
That is not the real thing. The framers of the Constitution, two of which were Dr. Quick and Sir Edward Garran, put together, Quick and Garran, or the annotated Constitution of the Australian Commonwealth, Quick and Garran, and these framers included Clark, O'Connor, Parkes, Isaacs, Griffiths. These are all very, very intelligent people, but very, very honest people. And they put together the Constitution, put it to the British Parliament, who approved it and added the first 9 sections to it to make sure that our rights were covered, and put it in place under Queen Victoria with an Imperial Act and letters patent, of which I've got a copy. They also put in the Office of Governor for the State of Western Australia with an Imperial Act and letters patent, something which the state government seems to think it has the right to ignore. They put in the State Electoral Act with an Imperial Act and letters patent. So the alteration of the boundaries of the Electoral Act 3 years ago, which I opposed in the Supreme Court, is put in place with the Imperial Act and letters patent, requires a referendum throughout the British Empire to alter it.
Right.
If they don't like that, boo-hoo, get over yourselves, you have to do it.
Yes.
It at least has to comply with Section 123 of the Constitution, which says to increase or decrease the powers of the state parliament requires a referendum under this section in the state where they're doing it.
So I remember saying that.
Alright, so that's Wayne Glue. I hope that's given you a bit more information about him and what he's about. Again, from my understanding, a handful of people took in one of these warrants to a police station and asked the police to act upon it. The police have then accused Wayne Glue of inciting people to arrest politicians and stuff like that. So yeah, just be careful with what you say on social media and what you say online, and like, share, subscribe, and definitely leave a comment below with what you think about this one, and I'll catch you all on the next video.
Try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me.